Welcome to KSOK Uncensored. Tonight's guest is Tasha Fishman, a Canadian homeschooling, unschooling advocate and coach who trained under the founder of the Radical Unschooling program, Dana Martin. Welcome to KSOK Uncensored. I'm pumped up to have you here for a couple of reasons. I found you on Instagram and had never heard of unschooling. And so I'm excited to learn a lot here today, but also your bold communication style is very appealing for someone like me. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come on.
Thanks, Kristen. Thanks for having me up here in communist Canada. I love sharing my story and sending out an SOS, especially to our brothers and sisters down south, to say that we are in big trouble up here and we want to make sure that you guys all know about it and take note.
Oh my
So
goodness,
thanks for having me
absolutely.
on.
Oh, for sure.
Mhm.
Well, I'm glad you're here and we have been watching Canada. I don't feel like we're doing much better ourselves. I don't feel like we're the leader of the free world any longer, but you
No.
definitely have experienced things before we have. So we are keeping a close eye on Canada to see what's coming. I want to hear your
Mhm.
story. This is something that where you're probably like me 3 years ago. This wasn't really even a thought. Homeschooling, unschooling wasn't even a consideration, but you woke up, and I'd love for you to share that story with us.
Yeah, 100%. No, I would have considered myself the quintessential matrix mummy, running around, schlepping the kids to school on the bus, taking them to activities after school, outsourcing them to other people to raise them, quite frankly. It's how I see it now. But I barely had time to be present between keeping up with fundraisers and brown shirt day and orange shirt day and all of the things that come with the being in the matrix of the school system and thinking that you're free. I had the illusion, I was living the illusion that I had this free time during the day and I would do what most moms did. I was working with my husband on our family business. I would do all the things and just be exhausted by the end of the night, quite frankly, after homework, making dinner, trying to read books at night. And so I remember my kids missing school a couple of days, the bus for weather reasons. And they would say to me, "Oh, mommy, could you homeschool me?" And I'd say, "Yeah, no, over my dead body, get on that bus," sort of a thing in nicer terms. Right. And it was really because, my whole life would have had to be in a different construct to even fathom homeschooling. It didn't even resonate with me before 2020 because it's the foundation of our society, right? You think you're being a good parent, you're sending them off. We have been conditioned to believe that after the age of 5, we are no longer qualified or credible to give our children what they need. And so we need to put it's like this rite of passage that we've all been through. So we've thought. But anyway, insert 2020, and my life did turn upside down. And the construct of it completely was upside down. So I had a spiritual awakening, just to let you know how unconspiratorial my mind was at the beginning. I bought everything hook, line, and sinker the first 2 weeks. We had to lay off 65 people in our family business. I had all the kids home, 3 of them on different iPads. It was insanity. We were lacking PPE in our city, and I used our company to help. We got a bunch of grandmas who were sitting at home to make masks. And anyway, the mainstream media was at our door, doing a story on us. I was all in there. I was like,
Wow.
yeah, let's wear the mask. So when we didn't go home for 2 weeks, I was like, oh, something's not right. My sister-in-law came by. She started sharing some things with me. I watched Follow Cabal, and then a video from David Nino Rodriguez, him just sitting on his back deck, the old, the boxer. And he was just talking
Oh,
about
yeah.
things going on in Hollywood and that things aren't what they appear to be and something happening. I had a spiritual awakening. I knew that this wasn't what they said it was. It was very, very scary at first because, it dawned on me that my entire life was a lie. So, it was very early on, if you think about it, we're talking April, and I was invested in this mask thing. So I started to
Right.
slowly back away from that. I said to my husband, "Okay, can you just give me 1 year to homeschool the kids?" And at this point, he thought I was insane. So literally, we've gone from, running a business together, together for 14 years, 3 kids. And all of a sudden, I'm going rogue. I'm literally down the rabbit holes of research. I'm having dark nights of the soul. He is just like, "Please get off the internet. stop studying, stop researching this, and let's move on with our life, right? And I was like, I can't. I knew it would be full hysteria come the fall in the school system. And spiritually, I knew there was going to be a mass exodus. And I was like, I need to get out and I need to not put them in that environment. I just, like Tony Robbins always says, you have to burn the boats to get to the islands. Like that's what I did. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea who was going to help me with homeschooling. I was like, I never thought I'd do it in my life. I was not your kind of granola attachment parenting, breastfeed till they're 5 kind of mama. That wasn't me. I was like the working mama. And, so this was just, my husband's looking at me like, you're going to do this? You're going to do this? And I was like, well, they're not going to be wearing a mask and they're not going to be involved in that hysteria. So yeah, I guess we're going to do this. So I moved out to the woods to our cabin, took the kids with me, bought everything that you could from the teacher's store, set up my kitchen table like it was kindergarten. I had like the ABCs and the multiplication tables. I had all the books. And I was like, this is going to be so awesome. They love their mom and they're going to love this. And we're just going to have the best time. So fast forward September 2020. And, it was an absolute epic fail. After 3 days, I was coercing them, yelling, bribing them, doing everything that I could to try to get them to do this work that they didn't want to do. And I was like, why don't you want to do this for me? You do this for all of your teachers, these strangers, and you won't do this for me? Little did I know that they're just showing me that this is how they deep down feel inside. And it's a safe space to do that with your parents, right? So I'm taking it
Exactly.
personally. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've just convinced my husband to do this. My friends think I'm nuts. I've lost most of them because I'm public about and questioning the narrative, right? So my whole life is blown up. And here I am in the woods by myself with these kids, and I have no idea what to do. So lucky, God, intervened, some divine intervention. And I see this video with Kelly Brogan interviewing Dana Martin. And she said, and Dana says to Kelly in an interview style, just like this, she says, oh, just so you know, I live with my whole crew. And if one of them needs me, I'll just have to mute you and tend to them. And then, we'll be back. We'll get back to it. And I was like, mic drop.
Right.
Like, did she just give her children that much respect to say, I will stop this interview and you'll have to wait, Kelly Brogan? I was like, I don't know what that is, but I need more of that. That was like, there was a freedom and an integrity and a respect for her children that I had not seen, because we had just been through COVID when it was like, shh, quiet, you kids. The food's in the sink over there, because like everyone was at home, right? And so there was memes about how you were telling your kids to fend for themselves while you were trying to finish those meetings up that you needed to get to, right? It was complete chaos. So I just ate it all up. I became her protege, she became my mentor. I did every course she had. I started reading all the books about unschooling. I didn't know if it was legal. I didn't know if it was 2 words or one. I was like, is this an actual choice? Do we have a choice to do this? And no one's told me about this. Can we harmoniously live with our children without curriculum? And they are going to learn as a byproduct? What? So, this is why I'm so excited to share this story with people. After years, it took me a lot of pain and a lot of work and stuff like that. But now I'm in a position where I can share my story and my path as other people did it for me.
That is amazing. What is the major difference between unschooling and homeschooling?
That's a good question. So homeschooling is pretty much taking what goes on at school and bringing it home and trying to emulate the classroom in your home for a certain amount of hours. Now, listen, there's a lot of people that homeschooling works for. It works for them, and I'm not knocking it at all. This is just for families and people where homeschooling doesn't work for them, right? And I would also say a lot of, you've got sectors of homeschooling. Some of them it's because of religious reasons. There's not as many that are leaving. Maybe today there is that are leaving because they're unhappy with the school. Some of it's because of bullying. There's all sorts of reasons people do this, right? And so you have to really find a rhythm that works for your family. And that is the key to unschooling. It is the reclamation of freedom. It is getting off the matrix of somebody else's timeline, calendar, and schedule for you and your family, which is what school is. It's an institution. So the philosophy is really about just following your passions at each child, following and family, everyone in the family. And by that, you're teaching them diversity, inclusivity, love, by meeting everyone's needs in the family and pursuing your passions with reckless abandon, not worried about having to get a grade for them and reformulate them and regurgitate them in a way that makes some adult feel more comfortable and tells you if you get the green light or not. Doing things that are in your own timeline and that work for your family. Like, for instance, my kids are ski racers, and that's what we do in the winter. So that's a big focus 3 or 4 times a week. It's being on the hill and doing that. I don't have, some people, that's not their thing. So they're doing other things. Like, every family and every child is so different. But again, on this road to freedom and what we're having, this abusive, authoritative paradigm with our government, what I was noticing was, okay, I don't like what's happening here on a macro level. I need to heal this in my own home first. I need to figure out, where am I a tyrant in my own home with my children? Where do I impose my agenda on my own children? Where do I
Right.
take away their freedom? Now, most parents aren't going to think like that. That's a process and it takes time. But that's part of the evolution of deschooling and unschooling as the parent, because this lifestyle requires a huge amount of respect and trust for your children and their path, one of which we have never been afforded ourselves, because we have all been through the system of the authoritative
Right.
paradigm.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That is mind-blowing. I'm like, I think I might be quasi unschooling right now because and I thought I
Yeah,
was a failure for it because I'm like,
yeah,
"Oh, I don't get my kids up and have them, starting their
perfect.
homeschooling at 9 a.m. to 12 and then have them," right? Mine's a little depending on what works for the family throughout the day, and, so
Yeah,
it's refreshing to hear that, the schedule that might work for some. You're not a failure if you don't follow that. There's different ways to get there.
100%.
Uh, that's
100%.
refreshing to hear.
Yeah.
I wanna talk about how we got here as a society, understanding you're in Canada, I'm in the US. I feel like there's a lot of similarities, but do you feel that, and I'm a career woman too, just came out of a 20-year banking leadership career. Do you feel that women
Mhm.
for decades have been trying to get to the point where men were, right? Because I mean, there was a lot of inequality as far as women being able to get jobs that actually paid well. But do you feel like women have overcompensated by completely putting family and children and raising children and even having children to the side while they develop their careers? Do you feel like that's part of the reason that we've gotten to this place where we're completely okay with having the government raise our children?
Oh, yeah, I think that, like every other agenda, this is serving a small elite group of people. So, what I mean by that is, we're seeing all these agendas unfold in front of us right now, whether it be the trans agenda, the BLM, all of these things, and they sound good. Like the feminist movement, just like Marxism, in essence, sounds good. Like at its core, sure, it might sound really utopian like, but it's not, never like that, and it gets hijacked, right, by this kind of same
Right.
ruling elite class of people who are our controllers. So the feminist movement was just part of that. And it really comes down to programming. Even myself, the why did I feel like, when I look back at how fast time goes and that how fast your kids grow up, and now they're 10 and 12 and 19, when they were babies, like, it was like I couldn't wait to get back to work, because the programming is that, my value comes with the amount of coin that I'm bringing in. I mean, it is,
Yes.
and who does that benefit? But the corporate technocracy, but the ruling class elites, that they can tax the other half of the population. And I'm not saying that there weren't things that were going on and abuses with women back in the earlier days. That's why I'm saying these things sound great at their core at the beginning stages, but they get hijacked to produce a society that's, despondent, disconnected, the breakdown of the family unit. Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that we're kind of turning that around, or we're looking around and going, is this worth it? Is this what I wanted? Is this fulfilling me?
Right.
And now we're seeing there's a war on our children, and there's no parents to be found. I mean, the entire thing I think the feminist movement was hijacked, but also the divorce, and there's this programming, and you see it in Hollywood and TVs where everyone's divorced and the women are out
Right.
working, and who's with the kids? Like if both parents are always working, I'm not slagging parents who work because I was there too. But what I'm saying is there is a group of people who benefit from us making decisions that they're socially engineering. Like literally, we think we're making these decisions because we're intelligent, rational people, but they are hacking our subconscious mind all the time through media, propaganda, state-funded books, libraries, everything we see, our culture. Just look at the trans agenda as one example, right? All of a sudden, this thing that was 0.00001% of a mental health issue is now everybody knows somebody who has a binary kid who's 7 or 8 years old. We've
Right.
changed the
Right.
constructs of society completely. Every bank, NGO, government facility, every corporation is on board. The liquor, the Budweiser, come on, that's a globalist agenda. And I think it goes back as far as the feminist movement and every other movement that we've seen, unfortunately. So we have to
Right.
catch on to this society, stop fighting each other, and take a bird's eye view and say, who is running this show? Who are our puppet masters? Who benefits from women being out there working and having $1 a day daycare? Sure, does that sound good in essence? But the devil's in the details. He's not going to show up. Like an abuser doesn't show up like just abusing you right away. It's very seductive. Evil is very
Right.
seductive. It looks really good. It's very convenient, right? $1 a day daycare, women's rights, and the state can have the child, sooner and sooner in order to use their propaganda. And so I always say this, listen, if you want your kids to end up like the government wants them to end up, by all means, send them to public school, because they will mold their little brains into the automatons that they want. Unschooling is the unfolding of who they were always meant to be. We're not there to be their teachers, their facilitators. We're there to be their cheerleaders, their partners, their allies, walking in partnership beside them. I trust that I know when my children need more to learn. I trust when they're going to tell me through their interests and passions what it is that they want to go for. Like humans aren't meant to know all the same things. And the other thing I want to say is if we can all agree that we have just witnessed the largest global medical psyop of all time with a complicit government and media who is covering things up based on alone the fact that people are dying all around us, do we really trust what they're teaching historically if they can lie about current events in this way? Like, what are we actually sending our kids to school for? Do we trust
Right.
any of the information that they're giving our children? Even the basics, because people always want to challenge me on, what about math and literacy? Well, what about it? I mean, those are just tools that humans learn in order to do something else. Your children, when they're ready and inspired and need to know those tools, will go after it. They will let you know. I promise. We don't need to force learn anything. It just corrodes the relationship between parent and child. And
Right.
that's actually serving the establishment.
Exactly. They're pumping out foot soldiers. I like to call it,
Mm.
anytime I reference it around people that might not be on the same page as I am, I like to just call it government school. And then they'll kind of tilt their head. And I'm like, oh, well, public school. And so it
Right.
really does send the message. I'm like, it's government school. And we think
Uh-huh.
about, Native Americans were sent to government school and that didn't go well. Right. So we see, hopefully people will wake up soon, but there are a lot that are
Mhm.
asleep. I am curious what your thoughts are on, it's clear that the government and these large corporations are after our children. What is the gain for them in capturing their minds?
Well, I believe the roads all lead to transhumanism. You know, this is the first step. The trans agenda is the first step towards the no gender agenda, because
Mm.
ultimately that's what they want. They don't want any gender. And then they're going to move into the age fluidity concept, right? So once you don't have genders, you don't have ages. When everything's blurred and there's no lines and there's no boundaries, it's easier to manipulate and control a public. And so I think the capture of the consciousness is about merging machine with man. It's about this transhumanism thing. This is all linked together with the schmaxine and the nanotech and how they want to capture this. And it's so fascinating and it's happening so quickly. And I'm not sure if that's because they're losing and they're making some major mistakes, so they're putting the gas on, or
Right.
if it's from the spiritual sense that there's so much light on the planet and there's a real awakening happening, and this has always been going on and we're just seeing it. I'm not sure. To me, it seems extremely accelerated because,
Yes.
right now they're teaching about digital citizenship to kindergartens. They're teaching about medical euthanasia, assisted suicide up here in Canada with kindergartners, and the trans stuff. I mean, and the collectivism, this idea that the collective is more important than individual rights and freedoms. It's happening so fast that in 10 years, we will have an entire generation of automatons,
Right.
exactly how they want them, if they haven't died already. I mean, you and I, Kristen, are the last thing standing between us and the next generation. Like, it's us
Right.
or it's no one. It's ride or die here, because they will be hooked up, vaxxed up from the minute they're out of the womb. I think they want control of fertility on top of it, because think about it. If
Yes.
everybody can't have babies, well, then they need to create certain fertility clinics, and they can do it the way they want. And I know I saw a video, I'm sure you saw it too, where it was these babies in this big dome, in these
Yes.
capsules everywhere, hooked up. And I'm sorry, but like, that might not be true yet, but that's a goal. Like, you can't say that that's not happening at some level when you start seeing how dark these psychopaths who are running the planet think of us humans and what they want to do with us. So yeah,
Right.
it's very dark. It's very dark, which is why I'm so loud. I'm very surprised Instagram has let me get as far as I have, to be honest.
I
I
am
mean, they'll wipe
too.
me out eventually. I
Yeah, they
know.
shut me down all the
I
time. Ugh.
Yeah, yeah, and they've shut me down before on a different account, but I think that they maybe want the divide right now with the trans stuff. I think they like the
Mm.
fight, right? They really want us divided. So that might serve its purpose for now, but I'll know
Yeah.
when I'm not serving them anymore.
Right, right. I know. I know my husband's always like, "Why do you keep using big tech?" I'm like, "Because if I can even touch 2 people, 1 person, then I'm getting my message
Yeah,
out there, even though, they've made it to where my reels aren't being shown, etcetera. I'm still making an
yeah,
impact even if my crowd is
that's
much
right.
smaller." So I'm with you on
Yes,
that. Wanted to ask you, in Canada, I did a little research, and again, I didn't quite know where to go on this, but it shows that laws in Canada range by province in Canada regarding homeschooling. And it
yeah,
looks like there's quite a vast difference. So I was reading that in Ontario, you can homeschool without notification, but you just have to register them as a homeschooler. But then it says here, let's see here, in another province in Canada, I believe it was New Brunswick, students 5 to 18 are required to attend school unless the minister is satisfied with the education given elsewhere. Have you heard of something
yeah.
like this where there's absolutely no the parent really doesn't have a say?
Uh, no, not in Canada yet, but I will say that there is a minister in New Brunswick who's been caught on tape in the last 3 years, who wanted to fight for mandatory vaccines, the COVID vaccine within the schools, for them to return to school. And that minister was caught on tape saying the kids aren't yours; they belong to the state. So it doesn't surprise me at all. New Brunswick is super old school, like old
Mm,
money. I don't, out east. We haven't come across that yet in Canada. Pretty much anybody can homeschool, but people are starting to get cut off because they're getting overwhelmed, like the homeschool boards. But I'm looking a little
mm,
deeper right now at opening private member associations for parents and children who want to get away from the government entirely, because right now we're still beholden to them. We have to send in a report to the Minister of Education. And of course, they claim that's under the guise of abuse, right? They don't want to have abuse. And I'm
right,
not saying that that doesn't happen. Of course, that happens in certain circumstances. But we all know what the government does, how they hide behind one nugget of truth and wrap a bunch of lies around it in order to control us more and more. So
right.
I am pretty certain. I have clients in the UK where that's happening. They're having to jump hoops to try to homeschool. Obviously, we know what's going on with Brazil. We know what happened with France. We have, but up here in Canada, it's 108% increase in homeschooling in the past year. So I have no
Wow.
doubt that they're going to throw the hammer down at some point. So we're going to be ready for them with these private member associations. I'm just not sure when it's going to happen. Right now, they're also trying to take away our guns, control all of the livestock on the farms, on how many you can have per acre, and that you have to use mRNA vaccines with it. I mean, there's so many things to fight right now.
Right, right.
I
It's
don't know.
difficult.
Yeah,
Yes, people
I
need to
know.
stay. I'm always telling people the battle is so big. I'm a huge advocate of staying involved in local government also. Like your
Mhm,
own city,
mhm.
county, it's like stay laser focused on them because they love while you're focused on the White House here, they love to really, pull the wool over your eyes and you have no idea what's going on in your own
100%.
county. Yeah, so that's smart that
100%.
you're doing that and putting that together because that is I'm prepping my kids for Oregon State testing right now, which just drives me nuts that I even have to do this. But every 2 years, you have to have them test,
Right,
and I'm asking everyone because
right.
I'm new to this. I'm only 2 years in. I'm like, okay, what do you do? What if they fail? I'm always like, okay, what if? What is the government? What do they step in and try to do? Right. So that's interesting. So right now I'm just teaching to the test, which I hate to do, but I feel like I have to play the game so that they pass and stay off the radar and
Well,
I don't know.
and
We'll
that's
see how
it.
that goes.
Yeah, and that's it. You know what? We have to, as unschooling parents, their freedom is number one. So we have to do and jump whatever hoops we have to ensure that freedom. And I know parents who have written the test for the kids, honestly. I know parents who'll just go through it and figure out what it is. And but in doing so, that might sound like, oh my gosh, but really you're just teaching them that the philosophy of it and the lifestyle you're living is that we don't base our value based on grades and what somebody else thinks we ought to know. We don't want to be poked and prodded. We want to share in present moment time our experience of what we're learning on a day-to-day basis in community. So it's completely opposite from what the system wants us to be like and do. So you're trying to navigate two worlds, and that makes sense.
Right.
We're all trying to do that at this point, but you're doing great. Just give yourself a lot of grace and a lot of room, and just know that, okay, if we've got to study for this or do this part just to get through, let's just do it, right?
Right,
And
right.
sometimes people have to move. Sometimes you have to move states. If they come down with homeschooling in this country, I will leave this country. There's many lines in the sand that I would leave this country, but that's definitely one of them. So we do what we have to
Right.
do.
Exactly. And we have just a little under 2 minutes left here. Can you talk about I know you offer coaching services and I want to make sure we touch on that, but I also what is a detox program or your detox system that you put out
Yeah,
to parents who are coming right out of government school and coming to you for
yeah.
help? What does that look like?
Well, I just did I get so many emails and questions. So I just did a little 7 video series. It's on my website at tashafishman.com. It's under the school detox kit. It just helps people who are thinking about leaving, people who their spidey senses are on, but they're not sure what to do. Like, what the hell's going on in the schools? What do I need to do? What are my first steps? And so I just kind of created that for people. And I don't have a lot of time to do one-on-one coaching. Obviously, I'm an unschooling mama of 3, but my kids come first. But I do have a community container. Every Monday, I do live calls with families and parents around the world. And it's nice to be in a community of like-minded parents doing the same thing if you're looking for that kind of support. So we do that. But the unschooling, the deschooling process for the parents, see, this is like a lot of times people come to me and say, okay, what do I have to do? What do I have to do with the kids? Tell me. They wanted to get out of the system and they have been conditioned their whole lives with being told what to do with their time, that they don't know anything else. They want somebody else like me to tell them what to do with their time. So my work and what I love to do is help and walk parents through the process of deprogramming the beliefs that are holding them back from having a real connection with their children. The beliefs that their kids need to be doing, being, saying, or something in order to be accepted member of society or hit that grade 4 star level. I try to help them get off of the gold star reward system that we've all been conditioned in, because that is, if you look and witness at what's going on a larger scale in the world right now, that the core of it is what we were conditioned to do in school. We have a pandemic of cowardice. We have a reward system that people are acting on instead of integrity. These are all things that you cannot learn in government school. They do not want to teach you that. They want to teach you dependency on the system, not sovereignty, not integrity, not, any of these things that are really important to be a critical free thinker. So the deprogramming mostly has to come from the parents. Like, your kids
Right.
will be fine. Like, so my biggest counsel to anybody considering this is take 1 year off. 1 calendar year will not change or affect your children in any way. Just think of it like that. 1 year. Take 1 year, but literally, like, to unhook yourself from the system so that you actually have time again. You're reclaiming the freedom of time with your children and unhooking from this system that you've been so busy trying to keep up with that you haven't even had time to reflect on if it serves your values or not. So
Right.
1
Right.
calendar year, and don't pick up any books. Don't do any curriculum unless they want to. Be with your kids, be present with them, get to know them again, acclimate having them with you all the time. We are so far removed from the mark of where I believe God intended us to be and how it was 200 years ago. And that's another thing. 200 years ago, people can look this up, the dark side of compulsory school. People think, oh, we saved these kids from the farmland, from farm life. They were ignorant. No, no, no. There were like shootouts, and people died trying to keep their children away from the government. They
Wow.
knew what we are finding out today. All of that information has been hidden from us, but it's all there for you to find. I would start with John Taylor Gatto's work, and I can go onto my website. I've got a ton of resources.
Yes. And what exactly, I know you mentioned it earlier. What is your website and where can people find you?
Yeah, it's just tashafishman.com. Or you can go to Unschooling Our Kids on Instagram. I'm pretty active there. Twitter and Facebook, Tasha Fishman. But I'm highly censored on Facebook, so
Nice.
I'm
Well, your
I'm
message
always in
is
jail.
powerful. You have so much to offer, and I'm leaving this conversation feeling more empowered, and I will show myself
Awesome.
grace in the process. Thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to come on KSOK Uncensored. We will be in touch, and you have a great evening.
Awesome. You too. Okay. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye bye.
All right, take care. Thank you guys for tuning in to KSOK Uncensored. We'll see you next Thursday.